Well, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Foster.
Thank you.
So I know you said you've been in a bit of a creative rut for a while. Can you explain better what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I would say that I've really tapped into like a new level of my creativity when I was in Brazil and I met Alexia. And we started recording podcasts together. And we did that essentially every day for more than 5 years. And I think there are a lot of important lessons to take away from that, both positive and negative. Like, hey, that sounds kind of crazy. Maybe not do it every day. But also having the constraints of we made a promise to ourselves and to people that listen to us. Like, hey, we're going to record something every weekday. And it doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be fancy. We recorded a lot of really bad episodes, but we always did something. So that was really positive. But also we may have taken it, I think we just pushed it really hard and kind of burnt out a little bit. And so the struggle for me right now is rediscovering that creative potential that I know is within me and accepting that it's going to look different than it did in the past. It's not going to be recording 1,000 more podcasts, although we are recording a podcast as I speak.
Right. But it's different. But I think what you said, just a couple of things I want to pull on. I think the idea that you guys had, or whenever we start out on something new, we have that like initial momentum. And that's normal. That's awesome. That gets you excited, and it's a new project and a new podcast, and you guys set out to do an episode every single day, which is fantastic because sometimes there's like the fine line between waiting till something is really amazing to post it or to put it out there, or just doing it because it's part of your habit. And I think it needs to be a little bit of both, because I know for me too, having to regularly post on YouTube and social media, there's days where I'm like, oh, this is terrible. And it actually isn't terrible. People seem to like it, or it just gets you out of that rut of not doing anything.
Right.
So I do think what you guys did, you probably did it a little bit to the extreme, but any type of action is always better than remaining stagnant. And I think you get clarity from that. You know, sometimes we think I just have to sit and meditate in order to gain clarity, but I think that's okay. You can do that too, but you also need to take action. And through the action, you will get clarity way faster.
Yes. And I would add, it could be extremely small actions, like just one step forward. And you know, if you do something in the world, you're probably going to receive feedback from other people. And that's what really starts to create the momentum, or allows you to see like, oh yeah, that really was a bad idea. Maybe I'll stop doing that and do something else.
Yeah. And it's a learning experience too. Even if it was bad, okay, move on to the next one. But I think what would be helpful, and I don't know if this is something that's helpful for you now, but these are like prompts or questions that I need to actually answer myself, because I too am trying to get out of a little bit of a creative rut.
Can I just double click on that real quick?
Yeah.
So you just made me share my creative rut. Are you comfortable doing the same?
Sure. Yeah. And I think it's a challenge that it's natural and I think it's good, because I think over time, what once excited us and what once felt really good, eventually it's not going to have that same that same power. And sometimes cycles close, and sometimes we just have to do something a little bit different, up level. But for me, with YouTube, I'm actually trying a couple different things out. I'm going to start creating content entirely in English with the simultaneous subtitles, just to see how that goes. But my biggest issue is I have had on the back burner, that's a good expression, on the back burner, I have had it in my mind, I need to create a new course. I have to create a new course because, one, I really want to. I want to have another course for my students who've already completed my main course. And I just need another project. I want something different. But I have literally written out the outline, the ideas, how it's going to flow, and changed it probably 50 times over the past year. And I'm having a really hard time making decisions and just getting started. I think I get really overwhelmed by the idea of how big it's going to be and what I need to do. And I want it to be really great. I don't want to have to redo it. So it's a lot of pressure that I'm putting on myself and a lot of overwhelm that I'm feeling. And then lack of clarity, to be honest. I feel like I have a million different ideas and I have to just, filter them out and just make a decision and figure out what exactly it is that I want to do. But it's challenging. It's very tough for me right now.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Jackie.
Sure. Of course.
I really resonate with that. I think it's kind of like the idea of what got you here will not get you there.
Yes.
I think that's the correct expression. But yeah, same thing for me. When I imagine any new creative thing, my benchmark is recording more than 1,000 podcasts. Yeah. And for you, it's creating a massively successful YouTube channel with an incredible course. And it's really hard for us to have clarity, what we do next probably is not going to look exactly like what we've already done.
Right. And it shouldn't. I think we want to feel like what we're doing now is better than what we've done in the past, that we are getting better all the time. But yeah, it's a good feeling, but it's also a lot of pressure. And then I think for me, that added pressure, it kind of paralyzes me. Sometimes a little bit of pressure is good. It forces you to keep going. But then other times I feel like I'm just I don't even know where to begin or how to start. And then I feel a little bit stuck for sure.
Yeah, I feel you. So
yes.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, of course.
You have some prompts?
I'm going to share what I also think would be helpful for both of us and for anybody else listening that can relate to wanting to do something but not really knowing exactly what to do or how to get started. Just the hardest part is getting the ball rolling off, right at the beginning. And then once it starts, then it's a little bit easier. But I like to play around with a couple different questions or thinking or writing prompts. So if anybody's listening here, you guys can even journal on this or just think about it. But one thing that I think is really helpful is to remove any limits. Just imagine if you had endless time, if you had endless money, if you had endless energy, if you had, all these things that might be blocking you in some way, if you could just mentally imagine that that's not an issue anymore. Mm-hmm. What would you do? And a lot of times we can get we realize okay, actually I could do some of these things. I'm telling myself I don't have time for it, but actually I do. Maybe I need to prioritize more. Or if we're telling ourselves money is an issue and you come up with an idea, you can maybe find a more reasonable way to do what you want to do or get some help from somebody else or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective, especially the way you said it, that after sharing your story, that you're kind of feeling stuck and overwhelmed of not knowing what to do or where to start. So on one hand, for me, removing all of the limits, I think it is an amazing way to gain clarity about what you truly want.
Yes.
But I also think perhaps maybe like step 2, the next move would be like put some constraints or limits on that first idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I
think the first one.
I'm trying to think about this in my head right now.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is just to kind of like open the floodgates. Let, the out of the box ideas come in. Like if you had endless money, endless time, endless energy, what would you do? Just play around with that idea. And you can write it out or just talk it out, think it out, whatever. And then once you have that there, you can ask yourself, okay, looking at this, now I know in an ideal world, in a perfect world, this is what I would be able to do. Just take one tiny step. Well, what can I do in the current situation that I'm in? And it just kind of removes the barriers, but then also it allows you to see things, I think, in a different perspective. Because most of us, we just shut the door before we give ourselves the chance to do anything. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, that's going to cost too much money. I'm too tired, or I'm exhausted. I have this. We kind of block ourselves before we even give it a chance. And if we just remove those blocks and just see what ideas come up, I think that's when we come up with really different creative ideas.
Yes.
And if somebody's like, I don't have any ideas, well, then you could say like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if, throughout the day, like there's times where we think like, oh, I really wish there was a school with this, or I really wish there was a place that offered blah, blah, blah. Or wouldn't it be amazing if there was a community of people, or wouldn't it be amazing if there was a TV show about anything, whatever it is. Those are just kind of like signs or signals or little mini like downloads, ideas for you to just consider. And they're coming from you, not from outside, from you. I think, and when it comes from a place of like love, like I mentioned, and good intention, like, wow, I think it would be so amazing if this thing existed. Chances are other people would think it's amazing too.
Yeah.
And we just have to not wait for somebody else to do it and just start taking action.
Yeah.
But it's not easy.
At the risk of embarrassing myself, would you like to just for me to go through this exercise?
Yes. Yes.
All right, we're doing it
100%.
live. Okay.
Please. All right, Foster, let's do this.
Can you repeat the prompts for me?
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to imagine that time, money, energy, any resources, those are not an issue. Okay. So you can't think, oh, I don't have money, I don't have time. Those are all, boom, all solved for you.
Okay, cool.
So,
Good.
Is there anything in particular that you yourself have thought, like, I really wish there was blank, or wouldn't it be amazing if this XYZ existed?
Okay, so I'll just give you the first thing that came to my head.
Yeah.
This isn't like a creative project or anything. But if money, time, and energy were not an issue, it would be absolutely amazing if I could travel. And when I think about the most creative periods of my life, I was traveling quite a bit. And the reason I tell myself I'm not doing that right now is precisely because of money, time, and energy.
And what would be the purpose of your travel? To kind of get those creative juices flowing again? Or is there anywhere in particular that you would love to travel to?
I would love to travel to so many places, but I think travel for me it's like my ultimate flow state.
Yeah.
Like I'm a super anxious person, but in airports, I'm like in the zone. I feel so good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Me too. I love airports.
Yeah. Like everyone else is stressed out and I'm just like zen. So I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Traveling is just like can be weeks of flow state for me.
Yes. And have you thought about like what it is that while you're in this flow state at the airport or while you're traveling, like what is it that you imagine yourself creating or doing even? What experiences do you think you'd be having?
I imagine myself writing much more, potentially writing publicly. Like I journal a lot, but it's all very private. I also imagine myself recording, perhaps music, but also just like my voice and other people's voices. So some form of like audio creation, but it would probably look quite different than what I've done in the past.
Yeah. So maybe some type of audio creation that involves, your writing, your journaling, something more personal with your voice, other people's voices, conversations with other people, maybe even music that you're creating as well. Maybe something that has a mix of those things, maybe documenting your journey, not just what you're doing that's visible to the outside, but the inner journey as well.
Yeah. So just to see how fruitful these questions can be, like taking out the restraints, I think if I would allow myself to travel, that would just open so many doors to my creative potential. And then kind of trying to zoom in a little bit. It's like I'm already having a bit more clarity of how that would look.
Right.
So I recently became a resident of Portugal, and I really don't know much about Portugal.
You can travel around Portugal even.
Yeah, which I could do for super cheap. Like I could go on day trips and I could write about, interview Portuguese people or other foreigners living in Portugal.
Yes.
That seems pretty doable.
Yeah. To me, I was actually going to ask you that. So if, now I'm glad it brought up the feeling that you want of traveling and exploring and talking to different people and kind of documenting the journey along the way. But, if it's too expensive to travel to other countries or go to Brazil or wherever, what can you do locally? And I know myself, I have told myself, I need to move to this place in order to have this experience. I need to change my life in some dramatic way in order to have certain experiences.
Some dramatic way.
Dramatic way.
Dramatically. That's
a fantastic dramatic way. But when I just say like, okay, well, what baby step, what tiny step can I do from here? Because sometimes we can do more. We think that we have to go someplace else in order to get the feeling or the experience that we want. But a lot can be done from where we currently are. So I love that you came to that conclusion on your own. You just said, actually, I haven't traveled much around Portugal, and maybe that's a good place to start. And again, I think if you're doing it with the intention of fun and not taking that pressure off, like if you don't make any money or if you don't get famous or whatever, that stuff doesn't matter. It's just if you are enjoying the experience, that's all that matters. If you're learning and you're testing yourself and trying different things, it's a success in itself. And I think we are so conditioned to think that the higher the financial gain, the bigger the success it is. Well, there's a cost to some of these things that we make a lot of money from as well. And sometimes that cost is our happiness, our health, our quality of life, our relationships. And there's other things that are important as well. So we just have to, question these limiting beliefs
Yeah.
and open the floodgates of what if, what would I do? And just kind of let your mind wander and see what comes up.
Yeah, I really like that thought exercise because I think most people have like deep desires and this kind of unlived life within them. And almost all of the time, the limits are time, money, energy. You can probably add a few more in there, but yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were the guinea pig. You did awesome.
Thank you. Kind of embarrassed.
It's fun, right? Fun exercise to do. All right, Foster. Well, I think we covered a lot in this episode, maybe 2 episodes.
Yes, we created at least an hour's worth of conversation. Any parting thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with, Jackie?
I guess I would first say, if anybody can relate to feeling not creative, it's very normal, but don't believe that thought. And we just have to cultivate creativity. And a lot of times we look outside of ourselves when we just have to look inside and asking yourself questions like, wouldn't it be great? Or what if? I really wish there was. Things like that get you focused on what you can create rather than, I wish there was this, but there isn't, or waiting for somebody else to do it. So I think we just have to kind of direct our focus in a more creative way and see what magic unfolds.
Yeah, I'm even thinking of the example I just gave.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking like, oh boy, it's raining today. And yeah, I actually am very tired and I don't have any money. So I was thinking, what is like the most baby of baby steps I could take? And it could be something as simple as like getting on the metro and walking around a neighborhood that I don't really know that well here.
Yeah.
So think about
and
the
then
smallest action.
And just, writing about it and maybe striking up a conversation with people. Just see, I think we just have to go through our day when possible. Like I mentioned, like in that flow state, just go and show up and see what happens. And I think it's pretty amazing what can unfold when you're just open to it and you're present and you're observing. We go through our lives so distracted. We're not even aware of what's happening around us. We're just stuck in our inner mental world. But if we can just turn that off a little bit and just be completely present and see what happens, it's a really fun experiment. And just like you said, get on the metro. Metros are always interesting. And just observe it. Like, wow, I like the that guy's outfit over there. Or, oh, look, I wonder what the story is about that couple. Just see what happens.
Yeah. Everyone else is thinking the exact same thing.
Yes.
Probably. Everyone on the metro is dealing with the same problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when we just begin to see each other as we're all human, we're all in this together, and we begin to see that light in every other person around us, and it builds that connection and just ends up being a much better life experience in general.
Wow. I do not think I could have ended the episode on a more positive note. So I think that's a great place to leave it for today, Jackie.
Yes. Thank you, Foster. This was fun, as always.
Thank you. I'm inspired. I'm going to go jump on the metro. And I'll see you in the next episode.
All right. Sounds good. Bye, guys.